Hey guys, this is Shreyas back to you with another review. Today I'm going to review the OnePlus 8 and I'm slightly going to compare it with the OnePlus 8 Pro as well because I used it one after the other. So if you're again deciding between the two, this might help as well. So it's kind of a review which I'll try to keep it short because most of the things between these two devices are common, especially specs wise. Whatever are the differences, I will specify on the same and go into detail about the OnePlus 8, and hopefully it will help you decide between the two. Also, if cameras are important to you, I have made a dedicated camera comparison between the 8 and the 8 Pro, so I'll link it in the card above and you can go have a look. This is Shreyas and let's check that out. So let's talk about the design of the phone. We obviously have again curved edges on the front and the back, and this phone is ergonomically easier to hold. The form factor is a little bit smaller than the OnePlus 8 Pro and it definitely feels easier to hold and is significantly lighter when you hold both in the hand. I personally did not have a problem with the 8 Pro ergonomically and I'm quite well adjusted to it, to be honest. But anyone with smaller hands or who is liking a small factor phone can definitely go with this. I know the screen size looks huge at 6.55 inches, but to be honest, due to the screen to body ratio, this is definitely a one-handed phone to the most extent. But for some occasions you definitely need to use both hands, and that's kind of the case with all the phones right now. Also, in my variant at least, the highlight feature is this. So this is the Interstellar Glow variant, which only comes in 12 plus 256 GB configuration. So it basically costs 50,000. If you ask me, this phone is not worth for 50,000. So I would definitely recommend you to go for the 45,000 variant, which is 8 GB of RAM and 128 GB of storage. That is the sweet spot and I feel the price is justified over there. So next, let's come to the display of the phone. This has a 6.55-inch AMOLED screen with 90 Hz refresh rate at FHD plus resolution. Now over here, I would like to compare it with the OnePlus 8 Pro to a certain extent. When I switched to the OnePlus 8, this one, I definitely noticed the refresh rate difference. Maybe because it was a slight downgrade. If I would have gone from the 8 to the 8 Pro, I might not have noticed it, but then I do notice all this stuff because I nitpick. I can assure you this thing that I wasn't looking for it. Now, is it smoother than 60 Hz? Definitely yes, because I use the 60 or at 60 Hz for some moments I did use the phone and it's a huge difference, and this will definitely feel way smoother than the 60 Hz panel. The next thing I noticed, which most people might, is that the highest brightness. This panel does not get as bright as the 8 Pro. I was carrying both of them and I definitely noticed the highest brightness quite different. The 8 Pro was easily visible even under bright sunlight, and I kind of struggled with the 8 only in comparison. Yes, the brightness is kind of equal to the 7 Pro series, so that is something I can give you as a benchmark. Apart from that, the display is great. The one thing I did not notice clearly is the difference in resolution. So this is a FHD plus panel where the 8 Pro has the Quad HD plus panel. Only while reading text, when you zoom in a lot, is when you will see the difference. And the only other difference you can probably see is in YouTube, when YouTube finally allows full resolution videos on phones as well again. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I really did not notice the change in resolution, so that is definitely something I can guarantee what you don't have to worry about. Another few features which are missing, small things, might not matter to you, which is the eye comfort feature, which is basically a variable white balance on the screen to help comfort your eyes depending on the environment you're in. The second thing which was absent is the MEMC feature. This is not something most people will use or like. I personally used it and liked it, especially for watching sports. Now that cricket season and football has started full-fledged again, I have been watching football mostly on my 8 Pro, and it's been a really good experience to watch stuff in 60 FPS or 120 FPS. There are small jitters in case of the 8 Pro, but overall it's a way better experience than 30 FPS of Hotstar streaming. So another most asked questions on the comments of my 8 Pro display issue video or the 8 Pro review as well was that if the OnePlus 8 has the same issues or not. In my unit at least, there is definitely no other issue. I played HDR content, I played normal content, and I checked in varying brightness levels. Yes, the brightness level on this one is also not as low as it used to be on previous phones, but still I did not notice any issue, be it hole punch banding, be it tinting issues, be it black crush issues. None of them were observed in my particular unit, and I did not really read about it much online either, so I guess most of the devices are defect free. Another highlight feature in most of the new phones, at least the flagships or the flagship killers in the market, is the haptic feedback. Now if it matters to you, it is pretty good. I liked it, but I felt it was a tad slower to react and less responsive than the 8 Pro. I don't know if the same engine is being used or not, or is it a placebo effect, I'm not sure. But in my opinion, it was a little less responsive. But if you're upgrading from a previous phone and you have no exposure to the 8 Pro, I'm definitely sure you're gonna have a good experience. As the 8 Pro I mentioned, I again kept the keyboard haptics on and it was good, but I felt the response was a tad bit later, and I compared it side by side with the 8 Pro and I felt that little bit of lag in the response from the haptic engine. Now coming to the performance, I'm happy to say there is literally no difference between the performance of the 8 and the 8 Pro. On the spec sheet, there is a slight difference in the type of RAM used. The 8 Pro comes with LPDDR5 RAM, which is supposed to be a little bit faster and more energy efficient. Maybe that's the difference, but I did not notice it in my daily use. Now I have been spoiled to use this version, which also has 12 GB of RAM, so there were no memory issues. I'm not actually a mobile gamer as well, so I did play PUBG a bit. Yes, the phone does get warm a bit, but it's nothing that it's overheating or anything. In the 8 Pro there was one instance where I got an overheating sign, but after the software update that got resolved as well, and the 8 Pro runs very cool right now. And so with the 8 also, there has been no heating or rather overheating issues. It does get slightly warm, which most phones do, and they have to dissipate the heat either through the screen or the back. So that's about it. The 8 is a stellar performer, and if you want the same performance of the 8 Pro as on a cheaper phone, the 8 is definitely a good option. So I would definitely recommend, if PUBG or mobile gaming or day-to-day tasks is your priority, or you want a phone to really age well, like even if you use it 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line and you don't want any significant stutter, this is definitely a very good phone to go for. Coming to the battery performance of the OnePlus 8, it actually has a 4300 mAh battery, which is good on paper and at par with most of the flagships, at least in the market right now. Given the 865 and the other components, the battery draw is okay. The maximum battery consumed in my opinion is usually the display, and since this drives a relatively lower spec display which is at FSD plus and 90Hz, the battery life is stellar. I constantly got above 7 hours of screen on time, and at times I almost reached even 9 hours or 10 hours at times. You can see a few of the battery specs up on the screen. I really charged this phone once in 1.5 days. Yes, I did not heavily use it or game on it, but that's my usage, and you can make an estimation about yours approximately. But no matter what, I can definitely say that this phone can easily churn out 5.5 to 6 hours even if you heavily game on it, in my opinion. Now your mileage might vary because of that, but overall the 8 is a stellar battery performer, and compared to the 8 Pro it's definitely better because it's running a lower res screen. Now in the 8 Pro also I got really good battery life even at 120Hz and QHD plus resolution, but it does vary a lot depending on the tasks you're doing. So that's why I feel that if battery is your priority, definitely go with the OnePlus 8. Now let's come to the software. Obviously Oxygen OS is damn nice and smooth on this phone as well. It is optimized very well in my opinion. No issues, no lags, no stutter. The rest I have kind of explained in my 8 Pro review in the software section, or else I'll try to make a dedicated video on Oxygen OS and how it's nice and why I prefer it over all the other Android skins. Overall, there is no issues or complaints from Oxygen OS. A few features are missing from the 8 compared to the 8 Pro, but they are very minor. As I mentioned in the display section, MEMC is not there. Eye comfort feature, which is kind of a Apple True Tone ripoff, is also absent on this 8. Next is the hyper motion smoothing, which was there in the utilities section, is also absent on the 8. These were main things which I observed were not present on the 8 from Oxygen OS's side and are dedicated to the 8 Pro only. Now let's come to the complaints. I'll mention a few things, and if these are a deal breaker to you, please make note of it. The first thing I would like to complain on day-to-day usage is the back. At least in the mirror black version, and this one especially because it's so much reflective, you might observe lesser fingerprints in the black version. I'm not sure. I did own the mirror black of the 6 and the 60. Those were fingerprint magnets as well, and I can't tolerate it, especially when I'm spoiled by the matte back of the 8 Pro, and also the glacial green color also. They are really fingerprint resistant, and this is just becomes a mess. Like, the first time this will actually look good, at least in my greasy sweaty hands, is when you take it out of the box, and that's about it. I did use it with mostly the cover, but again, this cover is kind of spoiling the point of this phone and also turning yellow just 2 weeks out of the box. The next one, which can actually be a complete deal breaker from you, is the cameras. Mind you, the cameras are good, but they have made some interesting choices, and in my opinion, the cameras on the 8 are made in a way so that you go and consider the 8 Pro. The camera configuration and the details of it are in my camera comparison video. You can watch it. I will link it above in the cards again. To put it in a nutshell, the primary camera is great. The sensor is the flagship sensor of last year, Sony IMX586, but the performance is a little bit better than the 70, given the ISP or the image processing unit on the 865 is better than what was there on the 855 Plus. So OnePlus has also worked on their algorithms, and the colors and the results produced are very good. They're mostly comparable to the 8 Pro as well, only from the primary camera. I'm not sure about the sensor used in this, and definitely given the resolution and the 8 Pro having a 48 megapixel camera, it does show a difference. Again, you can watch my camera comparison to see the details of it and if it will actually matter to you or not. Next, interesting, rather stupid choice is the 2 megapixel macro camera. I am extremely disappointed with it. Just like the color filter camera, the macro camera is kind of unusable in my opinion. The resolution is too less. There is hardly any dynamic range present in the pictures, and I don't know, even if you take it in very harsh light, sometimes it overexposes, so it's kind of pointless. But if you primarily shoot from the primary camera, this is a good enough phone for you. But do not go for it based on the macro camera or the triple camera setup. They're just doing it, in my opinion, because it's an industry standard right now. And also the cameras are a deciding factor, in my opinion, to go towards the 8 Pro definitely. Yeah, the other complaint I have is about the selfie camera. Even the 8 Pro selfie camera is not great, but there is a significant difference in the image processing of the selfie camera of the 8 and the 8 Pro. Compared to the both, I would prefer the 8 Pro, and so is the video quality from the 8. The dynamic range on the video quality of the 8 is relatively lesser. The 8 Pro has a extra feature called the HDR video recording, which did, in my opinion, make the video look better and a bit more natural. So I really like the HDR functionality in the 8 Pro video settings. Apart from that, it's the same. So yeah, I mean, if these are your concerns, then definitely you should look into the 8 Pro, and if there are other alternatives in the same price range, you should look into it. Just to specify, the 7T is also present, and it's kind of selling for now 35,000. So if 45,000 seems like a huge stretch for you, then you could go with the 7T, because the screen specification is kind of the same, but it has a notch in the middle. The aspect ratio is kind of similar, and it has a flat screen. So if you prefer flat screens, then definitely the 70 is the way to go. Also, the 70 has a dedicated telephoto camera, although the results from that were not impressive as well. There are a few things also they skimped out on. They could have easily included wireless charging in the phone. They could have easily included IP68 water resistance on the phone as well. But again, in India, to meet the price point, kind of justified, given that in the US it sells for around $700. So yeah, that's about it from the complaints on my part. Now the verdict. Should you buy the OnePlus 8? or should you go for the 8 Pro or any other phone in the market? Now, what I love about this phone is definitely the software and the hardware. This phone, even for 45,000, I have not seen many phones which feel as premium as this one. It is very good to hold in the hand. Build is really good, so I really appreciate that. So if you want a premium build and design, definitely this is a good option to go for. Now, depends on the competition and what you're looking for in the phone. I mentioned my complaints, and obviously you can decide for that. Given the price point, I feel that this has been priced very well in India. My recommendation for the OnePlus 8, if you are planning to use the phone at least for a couple of years, would be the second variant, which is the 8 plus 128GB variant, because it will last longer for sure. Yes, there is a 42,000 variant as well, 6GB RAM and 128GB storage, but I know a lot of people who have bought the 6 and the 60 with the 6GB RAM variant and are facing problems now. Whereas when I bought it definitely for the 8GB RAM, and it's running smoother even till date. So that's why if you're using it for a couple of years or more, I would suggest to go for the second variant. It would cost you 3,000 more right now, but overall down the years you will have a way better experience in my opinion. The display is great, and I feel the AMOLED at 90Hz with FHD Plus was a good combination. The battery life is awesome, so if you're looking for a all-day battery, I feel this phone will suffice no matter what your usage is. Unless you came for over 3-4 hours a day, then yes, your mileage will vary. Apart from that, all in all, this is a great phone. The only disappointment in my opinion, especially coming from the OnePlus 8 Pro, were the cameras, because the OnePlus had invested the most in the camera upgradation in the 8 Pro in my opinion, and that really has paid off compared to the competition and their own phones from last year. If it suits your purpose, the primary camera is pretty good and you can use that in my opinion. So that's about it. That's my verdict of the 8 versus the 8 Pro. If you want any other videos regarding the 8 and the 8 Pro and you have any other questions, please do leave them down in the comments. I will try to answer them. Any other videos you would like around the 8 and the 8 Pro, please do tell me. I will try to make the same. I'm planning on making an Oxygen OS dedicated video which will help you in discovering a lot of features which you might not be aware of and might find useful. That's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.